Why did I suddenly make my builds extra detailed and even bigger if I just disintegrate them in violent ways? Yeah, people in the Premier immediately realised, wow, I've taken a huge step in accurately recreating all events that led to the most tragic disasters that truly changed aviation. Using brand new tricks like, how did I get it to look like I'm thousands of feet above the ground? How many painful attempts did it take to perfect this? How did I recreate a realistic bomb detonation? How did I finally remaster the highly requested DC10? My biggest innovation in this video that added to the violence was definitely making more planes 10 studs wide, and this change later made such a good difference in how realistic the flight scenes look. Oh, the cargo door, I just swapped out 2 base parts for this and it's double-sided too. Simple and easy to be ripped off. It's looking a bit cursed so far. Let me finish off the iconic angry looking front the DC10 has, and here we are. Will I make a tutorial? Well, I'll talk about that later. Now, the best part of the DC10, the middle engine. I made it super fat and overall it's super realistic in combination with the stabilizers up at a satisfying angle. Another tricky livery to cut out. The aircraft impacted at well over half the speed of sound, so we need to split up the stickers so they'll let the parts separate dramatically. Well, this did not end up going to plan. For now, look at this, and this weird disc part. And did I manage to replicate that cockpit window look with paper? Well, do you want this to be a Lego set? Turkish Airlines had 4 DC10s in total. This one was flying a very popular Paris to London route from its stopover at Paris Orly. There were strikes at British Airways, so the plane ended up filling up all of its economy seats to a total of 346 occupants, leading to this being the most tragic crash at the time. This was more than a cargo door blowout. The force was so violent it broke all flight controls to the aft, and you probably know what happened to 6 of the passengers. We're gonna make the most chaotic breakup scene. Firstly, looping fishing line around the door and then filling the back with these small parts I've prepared. So here's our attempt 1, and again, yes. And from the inside, I'm designing segments to be able to be pulled away, and some loose seats and good angles are making this very extreme. Still putting these oxygen masks from GOL 1907 into use. Now, I don't usually do this, but what mistakes have I made so far? Number 1, there's a typo here. It's meant to be double L. I don't exactly remember whether I typed that out myself or used a worse one of these papercraft templates. Either way, I should have checked that. Number 2, in this scene here, it's just my JAL 123 cockpit. I used my DC10 cockpit for all the emergency scenes, but for this one, I just wanted to keep it because nobody noticed, and I like how the light moves. Now, can we get through the accident sequence without messing up more? Oh yeah, I hope this illustrates the damage to the control cables. It's just Lego and some trusty sewing threads. Okay guys, let me cook now. I am prepared. I've planned out every motion the plane will endure, beginning with the rapid nosedive over a darker sky. A mixture of handheld shots and angled fishing line shots is followed by a natural stabilization from the lift gained by the great increase in velocity. The lack of thrust due to engine 2's severed mechanics slowly lowers the uncontrollable plane as its shallow bank curves it all the way around Paris to the Hermenonville forest at cruise velocity at a final approach altitude. Now we're in the famous forest. I want to reenact its slow descent into the trees, so I'll clip it against this small pine, and these smaller shrubs look perfectly like trees at the scale of our plane. Let's edit in the infamous alarms, and now I must, as usual, fill it with many parts to add to the explosive crash. Please break up well. So I'm carefully lifting it, and let's hopefully aim it where I want it to go. Here it rolls through the forest air, the unmistakable blur of a DC-10, crashing, rolling and releasing debris. Here we can see how unlucky this one wing was, getting almost all the force. Then the fuselage was sort of cushioned. It opened up beneath and quite majestically ejected all those many parts. You can see better here. Yeah, it didn't break around the windows like I designed it to. Probably because this was just a strong build. But this is still a very good breakup, hopefully showing the intensity of what really happened. And that was all in March 2025. Seems doable? Well, this kid had hugely underestimated how tricky this next project will be. My Japan Air 123 recreation is just clearly different from everything else. Previously, my both longest and favourite single recreation was GOL 1907 at over 6 minutes long, but at 13 minutes, Flight 123 and its causing factors just left people astonished, as there's so much to unpack here, especially the lengthy use of the actual cockpit voice recordings. Near the end of editing this, I was getting shivers. This is disturbing. Making such an impactful recreation was not accidental because I've never planned out a project for so long. Let's leave our little 5-month window and go a whole year back to the Season 2 trailer where I revealed that Episode 3 has a remaster of Flight 123. I indicated it will feature a 747 with an upper deck, and employ a kind of hope. Well, that's just the song I use for JL123. Now let's take another step, also exactly a year back, to my original inspirations in the first place for the video that changed everything. Here's some unseen behind the scenes for my first recreation video while I say what made me choose this disaster to recreate out of everything else. It's clear that 2 years ago I didn't know about aviation. I chose 5 crashes that I did know about, and I remember watching this video which likely inspired me because you can see it was released around that time. And the whole concept of recreation partly came from this comment about this crash in my first pool video, so yeah, that led to this. I was kind of uncomfortable making custom planes for the first time, and after my phone experienced its own disaster in this fateful forest, giving up was definitely considered. Now, research. As well as remastering the recreation, let's remaster my 747 design with this lovely central fuel tank area beneath the wings instead of just the boring Lego base mold. And I use these pins to connect it to the base. Come get me, Lego, please. I think it's super smooth. If you look at the 747, it's not at all a straight line, its base is very curved, so I'm reflecting that. And our lovely Gimli glider windows. You know what, this is looking too pencil. Look here, the 747 is really wide. I'm gonna redo this. Oh yes, hello the first 10 stud wide Lego 747. This calls for some changes to the upper deck, and once again, could I make a tutorial maybe? I don't know, you'll see later. Now a nightmare builds the very back slope. Oh, maybe it's perfect. All this is being designed to cleanly break apart for the decompression. That's too big. Better now. First time making working flaps and elevators. Almost done, just a precise livery, and you can see these markings on the wings. I'm gonna add those. I could smooth out and tile the wings, but that would make it heavier than it already is. And time to stick on the black stripe on the windows. So much work, but I think it's worth it. Same with making these black and white doors. By the way, for smaller details like these, use a thinner paper like tissue paper and it'll stay stuck on better. Oh, and there's 5 doors on each side, so there's 10 altogether. Oh, and I had to make 20 for Tenerife. So is this my best plane? No, never celebrate too early, the worst is yet to come. So everyone knows the tail strike incident 7 years prior to flight 123, but I'm going to give it more detail than has ever been documented on the internet. You might know that here I'm making a localizer, a big instrument before runways that played a fatal role in a disaster last year. Come with my 747 to Osaka, where I've found the perfect perspective with rolling Japanese hills and a sheltered area to put my localizer for the introductory scene of flight 115, heaving through the forceful wind shear. I'm gonna make a hangar, but making it big enough to fit that plane is absolutely impossible. Meanwhile, I've made some background planes like a retro Korean Airbus A300 and this Pan Am 707 with custom wings, custom nose, but older engines. JL115 has just had a very, violent tail strike after this bounce and overflare. Wow, look, these gears are so fragile. Don't worry, I'll find the solution in Tenerife. Well, after that, this thing desperately needs some drag to slow it down from these spoilers or speed brakes, I don't know. Quick, let's finish that hangar before it comes in for repairs. It kind of fits. It looks like that roof has been through 1,000 pressurization cycles. That bending makes me very anxious, but the plane bravely powers on in. And here's the tail strike damage from under here, featuring Lego and small paper strips and cracks. I got mad at the roof. Well, now it's time for some repair scenes. We've got the Boeing truck here, and here was one of my earlier bulkhead designs. Well, here's what an aft pressure bulkhead looks like. It goes right here, and it holds a lot of force, so it's important all this equipment is used to repair it after that tail strike correctly, right? Here's the beast in the repair film set, in the strongest natural light you can get. Basically, what I've dramatized is these Boeing employees are shocked looking at the damage when their bosses walk over and this guy's like, hey, let's repair this. Then it all comes to action. A forklift brings this gigantic package. Here's a closer look at this box. All of these delivery details are full of Easter eggs and small facts, and I think it's pretty realistic. Overall, I don't think it would have come like this, but the idea is pulled off well. Osaka. Looking back at these terminal buildings, they're so basic compared to what I learn and design later on. The 747 rolls out of the hangar around the crowd that have just executed possibly the most obscenely rushed and disastrous repair job in the history of aerospace engineering. We've got this inside set for a bulkhead shot. The top half was fine, but it was the lower half that was replaced and the joining of the two was inadequate. These cracks are just done with marker and small black paper cracks. Then many clips in quick succession show the thousands of flights the plane took over the next 7 years and how the strength of the bulkhead deteriorated. It was uncheckable for all that time until it reached serious condition in 1985. I've investigated so many old sources to perfect all the details in my Tokyo Haneda airport build. How about a background plane? The 767 was thriving at the time. This is a cool livery, and here's my best attempt at it. Ignore that Airbus mask, that's still left over from the pool video, and I tried to straighten it out a bit. Oh, a cactus just fell on my planes, no. Well, here's my Haneda terminal. We've got a hangar that I'm happy with. Now for the advertisements we saw in the real photos earlier on. These are looking good, very 80s brands. Here's my favourite shot at this airport, yes. This was when flight 123 was gonna board, and I want to make these staircase tubes. Let's take inspiration from a friend who made one, so I'll make 3. It just uses that bar hinge method, and we've got a little vehicle beneath. This looks very incredible. Flight 123 is now taking off. The accident happened on a summer evening, and this sunset is clearly epic in replicating that. The 747 climbed out of Tokyo Bay and continued ascending over Sagami Bay, so we need a location with Pacific water surrounded by land. Here we are, though this is no new location. If you know what video I've used this place in before, then you should leave a like, or just do that anyway. You can see how much this video has exhausted me. Now the decompression. We have 2 parts to tear off. Firstly, the bulkhead pushes out the APU at the back, and then the tail shatters. Well, it should in attempt 2. Attempt 3, come on, almost. Attempt 4, yes, but that's kind of at the same time. Attempt 5, decent, but you can do better. Attempt 6 is perfect. Rest in peace, stabilizer. Actually, let's do a little scene like with Aloha and plunge it all into the water, but try not to lose any of this. Okay, we managed to pick up everything, yes. Well, flight 123 will now come leaning away from the ocean and charging inland towards this tragic landscape. I've managed to make an interior big enough to be accurate, and this time we've got stowage spaces for luggage up here. I added lights for extra ambience, and some of these scenes are very ominous. The events in the cockpit are becoming increasingly desperate and chaotic. We know that all steering controls with the stabilizers failed, so as the plane banked heavily to the right, the captain requested a return to Haneda. For this scene, here's the control tower I built, not based off anything, just tried to make it interesting. And here's the set for the controllers, the smaller details and this larger print showing the flight progress of the emergency aircraft. One of the many new perspectives I tried out was from a passenger window. In this shot, I'm recreating this picture taken from the flight. Of course, I did this after the crash because I kind of needed the whole wing. It's best to be zoomed in a lot and maybe put some blur of the edge of the window. Because of the explosive decompression, an area of the cabin roof collapsed at the back. The flight engineer suspects it's because one of the doors has blown out. Then I made this set for Japan Air Tokyo, who use a communication called CellCal to selectively call the plane, which gives this disturbing alarm. Now the plane is heading straight for Tokyo, soon passing over Mount Fuji. Passengers likely felt extremely disorientated, as without a stabilizer the plane was oscillating like a piece of paper dropped from a height. The side-to-side motion is called Dutch roll and becomes stronger as the aircraft clears Fuji. Similar to my Lot 16 recreation, they were unable to lower gear without any hydraulic pressure, but the flight engineers successfully used the alternate method to lower them slowly by gravity. This was done to slow the plane down for a descent to more breathable air levels. Both the crew, flight attendants and passengers with oxygen masks are anticipating this descent, but the plane stays high, around 20,000 feet for about 10 of the 32 minutes. The natural up and down motions are phugoid motions, yet the crew can dampen these by using these thrust levers I made, both to show that and the fatal part thrust will play later in the story. Though their minimal bank control leads to a full 360-degree loop, but they manage to pull out of it just as Yokota Air Base contacts them. This is a military base which was continually offering assistance. The captain expresses several times that the plane is now uncontrollable. It has been said that the crew never put on their oxygen masks, so they must have been very fatigued in the lower air pressure. But because their altitude has now halved at this point, their thinking became clearer with the increased oxygen, and the captain began to comprehend that this may be hopeless. With altitude now 1/3 of what it originally was, the incessant cabin altitude alarm now silences, but the crew panic as the aircraft nears terrain. Now concentrating on solely avoiding it, the aircraft yaws to the left, inadvertently putting Tokyo out of sight as it now drifts towards more mountain ranges. In its final 10 minutes, the aircraft is thrown through a series of 3 climbs and dives. The final climb is so steep that the stick shaker alerts of an aerodynamic stall. I found one YouTube video with a very chilling recording of this moment. I overlaid that over shots of all 3 groups we've shown monitoring the flight. But in a way, there still was hope. It's the final stretch of the flight and the plane had just steadily climbed out of that stall. After the engineer successfully lowers the flaps, the plane enters its most stable state since the disaster began. It peaks at 13,000 feet, well above the mountain range, so maybe they could have made it to Haneda or Yokota before the fall began. For unknown reasons, the engines on the left were given more power than on the right. This could have turned them back to Tokyo if it wasn't for the even greater mystery of an imbalance in the flap extensions. Both of these factors empowered the lift on the left wing. From one side, passengers had an upward view to the sky. From the other side, they hang 82 degrees straight over the nearing forests. The subsequent unrecoverable dive here at this cliffside location makes it clear that it's the end. Engine 1 is severed, but the plane climbs. It climbs, but its bank impacts a ridge. All engines and stabilizers break and the 747 inverts. This place has a nice atmosphere. The small plants and rocks over here hopefully recreate that mountainside. The breakup was good, but I modified the aftermath for realism. We also had a frog visit the wreckage from the second impact. In the video, I added this ATC audio from after the crash where the Yokota controller attempted to clear the plane to land. On the 12th of August, it will be the 40th anniversary of this crash. Well, that was all in April, yet the state of my channel even then, absolutely desolate. I need to post this video. Even the soonest release date of July 6th is so far away. Oh, then how could this get any worse? Well, I have like 25 important exams, and as much as I like to prioritize LEGO Aviation, sometimes I absolutely can't. So that cleared away half of June and the whole of May. Oh no. Will time and weather allow me to cook the best LEGO plane crash of all time? Tense promises were made half a year ago at the end of the last behind the scenes. I hinted I must make a Tenerife remaster, even illustrating that impossible chain of coincidences before the disaster. A Tenerife recreation was first promised as my 10k special, yeah, my 10,000 subscriber special. But it gave a thumbnail powerful enough to possibly have invented a whole new YouTube topic, so maybe if I just absolutely revamp that thumbnail, I might be in for something super big this July. Okay, so I planned this video to be about the most tragic plane accidents which cannot be topped, so let's make my ultimate recreation of the most tragic aviation accident. And how did I fit it in the time I had? Well, exams just finished and I haven't touched LEGO in 2 months, so where do I start? I just about had enough parts to make 2 identical sets of wings. I'm so glad this was not a windy day. I'm doing this same illegal method from the 747 SR. Now I'm realizing how many scenes there are to do with these planes, and the fact that KLM is like a completely different colour, I've had to order loads of blue parts. Though this was planned out before my extra wide 747 design, so I didn't get blue ones of these. And thinking about how much holding and pulling I will do with these planes, I can't have them ridiculously heavy like with Japan Airlines, because I would, die. And thank you so much to myself for deciding to keep them at just 8 studs wide, because it saved a lot of strength and resources. I made KLM nose and I don't like it, so I successfully made it look better. This blue looks very nice, and oh look, I even made a marvelous stop motion for you. You can see my work on the back with those hinge parts, and here's a roughly final design. It's different to Japan Airlines and I like it. Oh, what's all this Technic stuff? Remember with Flight 123 where I showed you that brittle landing gear? Yeah, well, that couldn't even stand the gaps in the garden patio, so for a recreation with a ton of bumpy runway scenes, we need a huge structural upgrade for my landing gear. I got a bit of inspiration, and here's my version. Some bits of realism like the gear doors and supports, and please let this be sturdy. I also revamped the front gear, going for strength and detail. Whoa, what is that? Yeah, well, see that normal fan blade printed part? Wait, can it just do this? Oh, it doesn't even need a part there. Oh, but then I did something questionable. I really want to make that engine spiral by using black marker, and I actually think that's quite cool. Only do this if you have a very precise hand though. my nice little stabilizers, and of course they make it tail heavy as usual, so let's pack it with concrete blocks that barely make a difference. We want to make these hinges blue, so I've been trying over and over to get the ideal blueprint, but it never exactly prints what I tell it to. Oh, and meanwhile, hello Pan Am. I'm trying to make the structure the same as KLM, but this nose just turned out a little bit better. This is one of my favorite 747 designs, that slope is so clean. Let's now print out decals like Clipper Victor, because all Pan Am planes had fun names. Even the 2025 Pan Am 757 is called something like Yankee Clipper 2. Doing those doors we love, and I even put this little trap door, I think. It's a cool detail. I made a last minute order of these cheese slopes for our smaller scale central area. That's clean. Hey Americans, could you let your president know I borrowed some parts from his 757 tail to sneak into my Pan Am? I covered them up with paper because I ran out of white ones. Well, the back of Clipper Victor came together amazingly, and it's almost all done, just KLM to go. Only the real fans will know where I've done this kind of thing before. I've never put so much precision in making a windscreen wiper, and that's an epic front to an epic build. Imagine scraping this beauty across some tarmac road. Stupid, am I right? It's time for the opening scene. I hope that telling you that these two builds took 5 days of morning to nightfall work can put it all into perspective more. I say that's pretty efficient. Well, now here's the giant winding JFK terminal. The posters are full of Easter eggs and ironic details like how they think their airline will last forever, references to Spain, and a cut open view of the first class cabin which KLM will quite literally cut open. I try to keep all shots very short in my video, so I think it's an excellent drop of variety having this be a sprawling continual 30-second shot. Oh, and something I wasn't really going to mention, during filming it started insanely raining. This cover made barely any difference and it looks like a hurricane has been through New York. I had to replace most of the printed stuff, and see how I have to sort of glide the camera through smoothly? This seriously took at least 50 attempts for me to be happy with. That was 3 weeks ago from now, and my legs are still aching. Hey Amsterdam, I revived the PSA houses plus this larger home, and KLM flies concerningly low over them. See this airport perimeter fence? It was some metal thing we cut up, and the barbed wire is made from this galvanized wire we bought. Surprisingly, I could just about fit both planes in the car, and here we are where both planes will cross the Atlantic en route to you know where. Yeah, it's the same coast we used for Japan Airlines, but it's so different in this blazing blue sky. The realism was certainly worth the sunburn I got. Now, let's make a map. Everyone loves adding maps. We're now entering the Spanish African territory of the Canaries. Here, I've added the names of the islands. Well, to introduce the Canaries, let's make some sloping terraced houses. A Spanish fan seems to know some vital details, so I will trust this. Houses are attached, check. Balconies, check. Warm colours, check. And driveways, check. Wow, but there's one thing missing. Well, I've been to this island, probably on an ultra low cost Ryanair flight. I kind of based my homes off these, but you can see lots of tropical foliage, so I did a legendary discovery on Amazon and got loads of these model palm trees. They match so well, but back in the 70s, Ryanair was pure fiction, and the Canary Islands Independence Group was not happy under Spanish control. Is this familiar? This says, get the Spanish people out of the Canaries, don't support stuff like this. Well, I made their little spiral be an ominous motif in the video, focusing on it in these house scenes. I added glitchy effects which exaggerate the idea that this place wasn't as perfect as it seems. The rest of the posters were made by me, just showing their messages for Canary people to return to their roots, and that they probably wanted to be their own country. Now we go to the circular volcanic island of Gran Canaria, which is where all passengers were expecting to arrive. I need to perfect this terminal as it is going to show a lot of stuff despite the fact that 0 passengers ever reach it. The bombing of a florist shop. Here's many Lego flower beds, and let's create some real flower beds. Terminal coming together great, and we've got all their prices in the currency at the time because I researched stuff way too much. Here's the check-in desks, and we've got all our flowers ready for sale. The roof collapsed from the detonation, so I'm making it very cluttered if it's a big part of the story. When making rooftop details, it's good to use satellite imagery for inspiration, and I think all these boxes, air conditionings, panels, antennas and HVAC systems look great, especially with this extension I did to the back of the terminal. Oh, what are these things? Well, we're satisfyingly filling them with play sand, as these are great big beds of sand which we can plant the palm trees. Now it's literally Las Palmas Airport. I built a staircase and car parking, and whoa, surely it's ready for some action now. We've got the 2 villains who just entered Flores de Primavera, the most peaceful place, and planted the explosives. I think the purpose of acts of terror like this was just to get on news headlines and spread their message, not necessarily to harm people, hence why the desk clerk in the check-in desk got the phone call to evacuate people. total. Well, the blast injured just around 7 people. Different sources say different numbers, so we'll never know for sure. But how? What did I just do to my Lego? Well, I could picture in my head a great cloud of dust erupting through the passenger terminal. So to try and make some dust, we're using whatever's at home, so mixing dry black paint with this baby powder. We pulled a loose part on fishing line for the roof collapse, but not everything went perfectly. Then we threw small parts mixed with the dust to show the destruction in the terminal and the intensity of it. Gotta take this a bit further and set some paper on fire to get some flames and smoke. But uh-oh, there's one thing I wish I had noticed. Oh, that's bad. These are like so useful too. Well, fortunately, the cost of this plate can be covered by my channel membership. If you feel bad and want to support me more, then you can get loads of bonus videos. And I upload like never regularly, but there's loads of extra videos here. The planes are now approaching the burning Las Palmas, and I really want to make it feel like the planes are thousands of feet above a real runway, so here is my smaller scale yet mega runway. It's of course based off Las Palmas, and it uses this building technique with tiles for thin stripes, and these yellow arrows are done like this. It fits well. Here's the other side, and then I expanded it again. So for a safe ride, we put blankets on the plane so that they didn't slide and the runway sits on them firmly. We waited for the tide to go out, and here we go, time for holding patterns and diversions. Both 747s insisted they had enough fuel to keep holding above the airport until it reopened, but Las Palmas controllers didn't allow them to stay, so it seems like they were too one of the fatal steps in the disaster. In some of the scenes, you can see the black crater in miniature Las Palmas. Soon the aircraft was sent on the 25-minute flight to Tenerife. Let's build the Tenerife terminal, just for background scenes now, but full realism, and wow, yeah, what more can I say? Oh, do you see that tiny advertisement on the mountain? Here it is. Well, I'm going to recreate them and plant them in this perfect Tenerife location. We've also got a cigarette advert, and there's all 3. Oh look, loads of planes. I made this British Airways L1011 TriStar, which is just a blur visible in some of the aftermath images. It's not the best because it just took like 20 minutes. Then this 737-200 that I don't know how to pronounce. It's clearly visible in this picture before the disaster, and yeah, we've used it earlier on. Oh, I'm using my white wedges for the first time. The DC8 is like a vintage A340, and with these glamorous white wings, here we are. That ATC tower we saw here it is. This was probably right before it was demolished, and I'm so happy with how I recreated it. This surplus of tall transparent parts and tan parts I got for a future video have come in so useful. Oh yes, this is literally it. That is a nightmare to transport. Well, yeah, we're at this location, but right here back in winter, I crashed the 787 for the Dangerous Ways video, and look what happened. That was very unusual, and even stranger, I just found that remnant, no longer buried in the snow, sat in the same place. So bye Antarctica, hello Tenerife North Airport. This put those landing gears really to test, and they did okay. So KLM passengers were free to explore the terminal, but to avoid too much mixing, passengers in Pan Am could only stand around on the stairs and breathe some tropical air, though the Pan Am crew were allowing cockpit visits at the time for enthusiasts. Well, up in the tower was the Tenerife controller, a key part of the event. When Las Palmas had cleared the threat of more bombs in that terminal, the Los Rodeos controller passed that on to the pilots, who were now very eager to leave, though the KLM crew needed to stay a while until the fueling they chose to do was finished, the extra fuel that would be fatal to all on board. Dialogue like when the KLM captain was concerned about family learning about the chaos so far, and the Clipper crew making sure they can't taxi around the KLM, is just my best estimated dialogue of what they would have said. Same with the holding clearances. I probably got the technical language very wrong, but it fits. I made these voices with this AI, which is decent with languages, and I later made reconstructions of the CVRs in the accident sequence. I posted that full video on my second channel called SUP or Subsnail Aviation. When fully loaded, KLM powered towards the runway. My front gear doesn't really steer, so for these turning scenes it had to be very slightly lifted and pushed along. KLM was later instructed to go all the way to the end and take off from there. The fuel's extra takeoff weight would need a longer takeoff run. But what very few people have mentioned here is this fog I've done. Yeah, I'm not doing any ridiculous idea like fog machines or dry ice. This was already an 8-hour straight film shoot, and I don't need any more headaches. Editing in fog is free and gives so much control, like the fog folding away behind the wing here, and look at it looming here. You can't say this isn't beautiful. I just used parts of darker clouds from random pictures and a green screen for some motion. Oh, and always turn the saturation to 0 with smoke and fog after you've cut it out to clear the green. Just don't do this with stuff like fire or it'll turn white. Probably the most fatal mistake of the Clipper crew was their failure to get off the runway. They really wanted to make sure it's the third exit they're told to leave at, and if it weren't for them joking around saying una dos tres, they might have paid attention and seen it, but I did illustrate the thick sheet of fog over the exit, causing them to miss it, but going to the fourth should have not really made a difference. Well, now they're on the runway for many additional seconds. At the same time, KLM wheeled into position at the end and requested takeoff permission. The first officer receives ATC clearance for the routes they will take, which is not a takeoff clearance, but can be pretty clearly seen as one. This is acknowledged, then Pan Am first officer exclaims that they shouldn't take off, but at the same instance, the tower states that KLM should depart when instructed. There is no reply, because all KLM heard is a static high-pitched noise due to the two overlapping messages. There is a growing anxiety in the Clipper cockpit. They strive to get out of here before the lights emerge dead ahead of them. Well now, my phone kept overheating, I was beginning to feel lightheaded, but it's the moment now. The moment to reconstruct this gripping, world-famous position, a position that may well fit for an album cover, but was so real. You can see how I propped up KLM on that tub so I could comfortably get the best angle for my best thumbnail. So now I firstly failed to prop this Titan upon my Iberia buses, so in my socks and sandals I tried again, but this time KLM is suspended from fishing line, giving me the perfect chance to hit that photo button 22 times. I repeatedly stall, remembering how many attempts this following stunt will take. The best is just to focus and do it. Pan Am captain shoves the thrust levers to full power, steering hard to the left. First officer cries, "Get off, get off, get off!" when KLM's tail drags along for 70 feet in a hail of sparks as captain pulls back on the elevator. Most survivors sit at the front of Pan Am and between where KLM's engine struck. All are killed in the burning back of Pan Am as it is forced onto the ground, and every surface of KLM soon ignites. It crashes down and skids and turns, gradually disintegrating and coming to rest beside the third exit. The destruction of KLM 4805 specifically is awfully mysterious to me. It's just not known how bad the damage must have been to leave no chance for any survival, or how long the hundreds of injured had lived. The flames must have been immense. The two Clipper pilots were strapped alone in their seats on this fully exposed perch, while the other three people from the cockpit hung buckled upside down near the upper deck that had vanished. After leaping down, all people from that cockpit had survived, now in the deafening roar of the engine still at full power gradually coming apart. This one comment I got a while ago has really stuck with me, even though it's likely nothing. So that was the end of a long season of filming, but for me at the time, this was really just step 1 out of 2. Was this all worth it? This video took this long for me to edit, so to make this number make sense, here's how long it took across the 6 days I spent. It's now the most time I've put into a recreation video, and let's see how it's done in that little high time of its first 24 hours after upload. On the left you can see season 1, and we work our way down to 2025 on the right. If you think about this more, it actually gets quite unbearable. I spent 1 month on this, whereas I spent 4 months on this, and my skills and audience have more than tripled since then. So here's a single word that YouTubers use all the time. No, it's not dying, I hate that word, but if nothing changes then it just won't be sustainable if people stop choosing to watch this stuff, and my dream of going forever would be a waste of work. Well, enough of this lazy mindset. Even though that addictive feeling of numbers soaring up might be far in the past, that satisfying feeling of finishing a project and seeing what people think of the many surprises is infinite, and it's the only thing we really can control. After all, the people really are the only thing that matters, and when I try too hard on something, the comments never fail to reward that. Okay, so tutorials. I've wanted to make more tutorials and they genuinely do very well as big videos, which is a nice contrast. Just give me some time, I've got a lot going on and haven't had the chance to, breathe since like last summer, so don't expect this big tutorial vid soon, but beg me for it all you want. And the changing future, well, there's one certain video I've been planning above all of this. This video is my ultimate trick to bring something new into this community, and yeah, I've definitely got my biggest surprise yet coming this summer. 2025 still has the chance to go exponential for us, so after that video, I'll really know how to take the future. I want to make more traditional recreation videos. I always have so many ideas for new incidents and new remasters, and I could build forever. Please continue to support LEGO Aviation, and remember that these videos are not fiction. I'm not some YouTuber rotting on a flight sim, because LEGO Aviation is real, so that's why it must go on. I hope this is the very beginning. So now, go rewatch our full video, as it's going to be a lot more fun with all this behind the scenes you've just seen. See you in the videos I'm posting really soon, and thank you!